This morning I woke up with a crick in my neck. And you know how that is. And it sort of colors your whole day, right? When the pain arises in the body, it usually takes center stage. It's funny how that is. You can wake up with a headache. You can find out one day you have cancer. And suddenly your day is very different than the one before. And I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I may have mentioned it before, the situation in our family as my sister-in-law was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, which is a difficult diagnosis. So whether it's you or someone you care about a lot, you suddenly find yourself with this thought in your mind a lot. It's taking up a lot of your mental space, your mental time. And for some people, like for myself, it's usually a dorve. It's meaning the period of wakefulness in the middle of the night. There's usually a few hours. When I have something on my mind, I'll wake up and it's there. And so there's an opportunity there to really watch. How is this working on me? How is this thinking process working on me? And in this case, most of the thoughts in this case would go towards death. It's the natural progression when you're given a difficult diagnosis. And I look to Frank Ostaseski. Maybe you're familiar with Frank Ostaseski. He's a beautiful practitioner, mindfulness and meditation practitioner, and he wrote a beautiful book called The Five Invitations. The Five Invitations, and it's really a meditation on death and how death informs life. And Frank writes, death is not waiting for us at the end of a long road. Death is always with us in the marrow of every passing moment. She is the teacher hiding in plain sight, helping us to discover what matters most. Life and death are a package deal. They cannot be pulled apart, and we cannot truly live unless we are aware of death. Maintaining an ever-present consciousness of death can bring us closer to our truest selves. Maintaining an ever-present consciousness of death can bring us closer to our truest selves. So when I thought, well, what should I talk about? Do I talk about what's been on my mind mostly? Oh, it's such a downer topic. It's a difficult topic. And, I haven't been teaching very long compared to people in my field. But the reality is it's something really, really important, and I can't turn away. And we're always encouraged to turn away in our culture. Our cultural norm in this wonderful, wonderful country we live in, we do have some faults. And one of them is that we actively hide or avoid these ideas, these realities of our own aging, our own illness, our own death. We have this system of institutionalized care for our elders, which to me feels overused, right? Sometimes it's necessary and oftentimes it's not. Anti-aging creams, you're dyeing your hair. My hair is starting to come in gray, and so I'm starting to think, well, maybe I should start dyeing my hair. I don't think I will, but the thought comes up like, oh, everybody, that's something I can do. I don't need to see the gray. It'll keep me happier if I don't see the gray, maybe. Even now in the newspaper last week, there were 2 articles on these anti-aging medicines that are becoming hot as investments. And in general, it's just not cool to talk about death. It's just not cool. In this home where my husband and I preside, for some reason, it's a much more normal event, and our boys have been raised such. And they find that it's a rare person they can engage with who's willing to discuss it. It's just a cultural thing. It's not anything else, I don't think. We worship youth here, and there's a lot of good to be gotten from that. But the reverence of elders has been set down quite a bit. But the older you get, right, you realize that the contemplation of death is actually a great source of wisdom. It's a great and deep source of wisdom and happiness. Because as we gain insight, we do tend to feel lighter. In the Buddhist traditions, the Buddhists in general, they contemplate death every day. It's their practice. And I've been practicing with them long enough, not on a daily basis, to have already felt the benefit of the contemplation of death, the daily contemplation. And we'll, in our meditation, I'll read the 5 remembrances. Some of you might have remembered that. The 5 remembrances that the Buddhists recite every day. I'm of the nature to grow old. There's no way to escape growing old. I'm of the nature to have ill health. There's no way to escape ill health. I'm of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. And all that's dear to me and everyone I love are the nature to change. There's no way to escape being separated from them. My actions are my only true belongings. My actions are the ground upon which I stand. So they spend all this time. Okay, this is the reality. Don't be afraid. Because what you can do, you can do. So this Buddhist ideal of contemplating this idea is what informs a good life. So I want to go into that a little bit, but before I do that, I want to just point out to a personal story, not a story, but really a revelation. So when I was so I'd had 2 college degrees. First, I went to Columbia for Russian studies, and I later went to School of Visual Arts for interior design studies. So, and there was a marked difference between the 2 educations, and the reasons probably had a lot to do with being more sure of what I wanted to do. But there was one aspect of it that that was really just an approach to how I looked at things, really a mindset. So first time around, both times I wanted to excel desperately. That's my nature. First time around, I was a little bit just trying to keep my head above water all the time and just kind of getting the things done that I needed to get done. And I made it through fine. So the second time around, I intentionally would take a look at each project that was due. And in both cases, there were many, many projects. And I would look at the end product. What do I want the end product to be? My final presentation, my final paper. What do I want that to communicate? And then I would work backwards from it. And I remember thinking along the way, like, gosh, why didn't I do that the first time around? That would have made things so much easier. But as we all know, you only get to your wisdom when you get to your wisdom. And lately I've been thinking so much along the Buddhist lines about death that it's occurred to me that that's how I'm thinking about it now. What is my final presentation, and how can I work towards that? How can I stay focused on the mission? And I'll share a little bit later, I'll just share something interesting that I heard that's very relevant to that. But before going to that, I wanted to just rewind a little bit to this idea of impermanence, the impermanence of all phenomena. This idea that as we're practicing, we notice that things arise and they pass away. Meaning our inhale, our breath, there it comes. And then we notice it peaks and then it passes away, each breath. Really beautiful. And our lunch, the plate is full and beautiful. Then we're eating. And before you know, it's gone, it's changed, it's now transforming into energy in our body. Nothing at all is static, nothing is permanent. All phenomena are subject to this law of existence, the 3 marks of existence, this one. We're like our body is no exception. I think that's what I'm getting at. The body is no exception. And we know that intellectually, we know that. The Buddha's thinking process around it allows for some creativity. For example, I've heard it described many times that that we our physical manifestation, this body, is like a wave on an ocean. And so the ocean is there, this huge and deep body of water, and your physical manifestation is like a wave rising up and traveling, and then it dies down. It's not that the water has gone anywhere. The water is there. It's just this energetic manifestation appeared before human eyes and then is no longer visible, but the water is there. Thich Nhat Hanh describes the idea of drinking a cup of tea. He asks us to contemplate drinking a cup of tea. He says, as you drink your tea, you can trace back the water to the river that it came from. And the river was filled with the raindrops. And the raindrops came from the clouds. And so he says, when you drink your tea, you're drinking the clouds. It reminds me of physics. Maybe some of you have taken physics. There's this idea of the energy transfer, the transfer of energy. It's kind of a universal law in physics. I don't remember which one. If anyone here is a physics major. But the Encyclopedia Britannica, I looked it up. They say the change of energy from one form to another. According to the first law of thermodynamics, energy, the first law, energy can be neither created nor destroyed. In other words, the total energy of the universe remains constant. And so our physical form is just a part of the manifestation, this physical form that arises at the time of birth, and then it passes away at the time of death. That's the one aspect of the larger quest, the larger experience, the larger understanding. Thich Nhat Hanh also, I'm going to share something that I read recently. He has such a way of describing things that help to understand. And this is from a great book called No Death, No Fear by Thich Nhat Hanh. It's one of my all-time favorites, has been for years. And Thich Nhat Hanh writes, I'll read you, it's a little bit of a long passage, but bear with me, it's very interesting and very creative. He writes, "Nothing is born, nothing dies." That's the title of the section. A French scientist, whose name is Lavoisier, declared, this is in French, I'll just read in English, "Nothing is born, nothing dies." Although he did not practice as a Buddhist, but as a scientist, he found the same truth that the Buddha discovered. Our true nature is the nature of no birth and no death. Only when we touch our true nature can we transcend the fear of non-being, the fear of annihilation. The Buddha said that when conditions are sufficient, something manifests, and we say it exists. When conditions are sufficient, something manifests. When one or two conditions fail, and the thing does not manifest in the same way, we say it does not exist. According to the Buddha, to qualify something as existing or not existing is wrong. In reality, there's no such thing as totally existing or totally not existing. And then he writes, we can see this very easily with television and radio. We may be in a room that has no television or radio. And while we're in that room, we may think that television programs and radio programs do not exist in that room. But all of us know that in the space in the room, that the space in the room is full of signals. The signals of these programs are filling the air everywhere. We need only one more condition, a radio or a television set, and many forms, colors, and sounds will appear. It would have been wrong to say that the signals do not exist because we did not have a radio or television to receive and manifest them. They only seem to not exist because the causes and conditions were not enough to make the television program manifest. So at that moment, in that room, we say they do not exist. Just because we do not perceive something it is not correct to say it does not exist. It's only our notion of being and non-being that makes us confused. It's our notion of being and non-being that makes us think something exists or doesn't exist. Notions of being and non-being cannot be applied to reality. I find that very moving, very touching, and very eye-opening. Having been a very practical person my whole life, it's very different to look at things in such a way. On the other hand, so we hold that concept, this sort of different concept. On the other hand, we are most familiar with being manifested in this body. This is our familiar territory. It's in this brain, it's kind of what we know. It's our current project. And so my invitation is that we engage in a practical exercise. And this is taken from a scientist whose name I don't know, because it was a story shared with me by a friend that I just saw on the street one day, kind of randomly. But I haven't forgotten what he shared with me. He's a clinical psychologist, I guess, this person he was sharing about, who's studying about happiness in this physical manifestation that we're in right now. How do we achieve that? And the exercise is to reach out to that final presentation and write down a list of 3 things that would make you really happy about your death. Since it's coming after all, we all have to face it. What would make you most happy about it? And if not most happy, then at least most safe, or what you would prefer, given the choices that we are familiar with. And so it's like reaching to the final presentation and saying, well, what is it that I wish for? And then writing another list of 3 things, those things that you can do every week towards that. Those things that you can do every week. What can you do now? What is actionable in this moment that allows for that presentation, that final presentation that makes you most pleased? And this is why reflecting on the passing away of this physical manifestation, this moment that's very important, it's a normal and important part of life, an essential part of life. Reflecting on it really can help. And as mindfulness practitioners, one benefit is it really helps you to see that the present moment is where life actually is. This is actually a miracle. We're sitting in the midst of an absolute miracle. With the pain, with the joy, everything that's right here is a miracle. And so, can we make room for the miracle? taking again from Thich Nhat Hanh, he has such an eloquent way of encouraging us this way. He always says, you have more than enough conditions available for happiness right now. He encourages us to, when you see a bloom, to remember that your eyes can see the bloom. That's not always going to be the case. And for some people, even now, it's not the case. And when you walk from here to there and your legs are carrying your body through space, what a miracle. Well, the invitation is to slow down and see the miracles, to live inside of the miracles in the present moment. And we know how to do that. We know what that feels like. You can do it right now. You can breathe in. You can feel that oxygen that gives you life. It's the only thing between you and death is that beautiful oxygen. You can breathe it in. You can breathe it out. And you can settle. I think I'm going to end there so we have enough time for meditation and breakouts